So I'm just going to quickly go over some of the review pages that you already have in Canvas, just to make sure you understand what's expected for the test, the final exam. And so looking at this, this is a page you could print off from Canvas as well. But the best thing to do for studying for the final, you have actually a review packet for the final exam, but that's usually not enough. So I would go back to each one of the tests reviews as well. And I want you to notice on the final exam tab in Canvas, you will see this first piece here. That's the one that is, again, what I'm going to go over, which is the concept list. Here is the main final exam review with problems, like each type. But again, remember, a word problem about revenue could be about cost or profit, etc. And the answers are there in a PDF form. On the very bottom, you'll notice that you have videos for the review problems. This is from Mr. Stevens. So if you want to watch somebody actually talk it through, that would be that piece. You already have these on each one of the test tabs, but I went ahead and put them over here so that you have them easily linked onto the same page. So I put all of the test reviews, and I added the limits review because that's definitely something that people tend to not review each type, and it's not a hard problem if you just take a few minutes to review those pieces. So going back to the concepts, you're going to have a total of 21 questions on the test. So 21 total. So if you read this, the first 8 questions are going to be multiple choice. Basically, those were designed to test to make sure you understand the SLOs that are listed on the syllabus. So this is our way to test each one of those topics and be able to score it easily. You do need to show work for these if you want any partial credit, because these are usually right or wrong. So please make sure it's clear to me where your work is. Again, make sure you number it and label those pieces. So first 8 questions, multiple choice. The next 13 questions will have mostly open-ended, like your regular test, where it asks you to do something and you actually show all of your work and write a solution. So short answer just basically means you work it out. Okay. So just some quick comments on that. The most anything is worth is 8 points. So it varies from 4 to 8 points depending on A, B's, and C's that are involved on them. The 8-point problems are going to be ones that have much more involved. For example, that would be a problem where we ask you to do most of the curve sketching, or it's a word problem that has an A, B, and C involved. So kind of go over here and remind you about each one of the tests. So test 1, it's been a long time, so y'all think you remember it, but I can't stress enough that you need to look back at the review. And if you're struggling with a specific type, then I go back to the tabs and pull some other pieces up. So I actually really recommend you start with each test review first. Kind of make sure you have those concepts down before you go to the final exam review PDF, because I really think that's a good idea to take that where you think you're ready to take the test. And then it'll give you feedback on what areas you need to go back and work on. So I would start with the test reviews, each one of them, make sure I understand what each question is asking me to do, look over it more in detail if you don't remember, and then I would take the final exam PDF. So from test 1, you're going to be given the formulas for interest, just as I did last time, but you definitely need to make sure you're clear on which ones to use. Okay. You're going to have to be able to use to find equilibrium points. And remember, a point is both quantity and price, where they're given the supply and demand. So remember, we did this algebraically where we set them equal to each other. You will definitely also need to know break-even quantity, and that's where we set revenue equal to cost. You will not have to do any derivatives on this test the long way. So going to test 2, you may look at the review, and if it has any of the long way, we're not doing any of those pieces. But I would definitely check on the reviews for word problems to make sure you're comfortable with them. Some of the things that were repeated from test to test, dealing with the slope of the tangent line and finding the equation of the tangent line, definitely is going to be there in some format. So going to test 2, again, no long way derivatives. So you may be asked to do a difference quotient, but then they may be just asking you to find the difference quotient. And you are definitely going to be asked to find limits. So that's why you have the extra review. There's so many different ways to ask a limit question. We can ask it from the left, the right. We can ask it from a graph. We can ask it from an equation. We can ask it going to infinity or negative infinity, which is where you have to divide by that higher power of x before you can simplify and solve. So please make sure you look back at limits, because there's just so many different ways I can ask that question. Also, comment here, make sure you know how to do piecewise. We had a problem on that test that you had to do piecewise. You had to graph it and then answer questions based on it, and there were some of you that still didn't know how to graph it piecewise. So if you're not sure, please go back over the notes from test 2 where we graph piecewise, and there's extra examples of piecewise on that test 2 tab. But be comfortable with that. So you'll see this says limit, but piecewise is included in those types. So we had polynomials, rational functions, infinity, negative infinity. Review the concept of continuity. Remember that there are 3 steps, and you need to show all 3 steps to say yes or no. Sorry, if you're saying no, you just need to tell me which one it fails. But if you're telling me yes, you can't just say yes. You have to show me that it passes all 3 of those rules. Okay. So please look over your limits. Make sure you are comfortable with how to do a difference quotient. If I just asked you to do a difference quotient, make sure you're comfortable with doing continuity and showing all 3 steps. Going to test 3 and 4, because again, really they're testing derivatives. We're going to stick with the ideas here together. So finding the first and second derivatives of function using all the rules, that's obvious. Some of you lacked some of the pieces with natural logs and some of those, so you might want to look back over those. Definitely know that there's probably a quotient rule somewhere on this test, so be comfortable with that as well. I would data dump that. Be able to find your relative minimum and maximums, and remember again, that is dealing with you have to show the first derivative test. So it's not enough when we're doing a word problem to just say, oh, this is it, get my critical points and there it is. You have to show it to me, and you have to show me what point you're plugging into the first derivative on the left and the right. It's not okay to just put a plus and a minus. What value did you get out when you do the chart? So make sure you're comfortable, minimaxes, using the chart for maximizing the cost, revenue, and profit. Okay? So we'd obviously minimize the cost, but that word should be in the other 2 pieces. Make sure you're comfortable with doing the point of diminishing return, and that's where we're using the second derivative, and we're actually showing it using the second derivative and proving it again using the chart. So you have to show the left and the right change. So I need to see what value did you plug into the second derivative to get those values. So please look back over that, because a lot of you missed that problem on the test. You just said it was true. You didn't show me why. I expect to see the reason why. You don't have as many questions on this test, like so that I can test each concept. So, this tells me that you understand an inflection point. So please make sure you understand when you see those words, what am I going to do? Curve sketching, which was the 2 problems where you had to do everything. Be comfortable with doing any of them. I may only ask you to do one part of it, but you need to be on task knowing increasing, decreasing intervals, relative min and max, those go with the first derivative test. I show it. Concavity intervals and inflection point, that goes with the second derivative test, and I show all my work. It is not acceptable just to show what it looks like. I want you to check it in a graph on your calculator, but you have to show your work. Going to test 5, you're going to have to do indefinite integrals. You're going to have to use substitution. You're going to have to find definite integrals. Remember, with indefinite integrals, you have a plus C unless they give you more information. Usually you're given more information on a word problem. Okay. Make sure you understand definite integrals will not have a plus C. The definite integrals, which is 7.4, is specifically guaranteed on this test. One of those problems will be there. Be able to take a derivative implicitly. Okay. be able to find the absolute extrema, which is from 6.4. We tend to forget that when we're talking about test 5. Make sure, again, if it's a closed interval, you're guaranteed. You use your critical points and your endpoints to decide. You don't have to do the first derivative test when you're asked for absolute extremas. Information from every single test. You need to be comfortable, because we've done it all the time, dealing with total cost, revenue, profit, price functions. How do I get a revenue function? Remember, a revenue function is price times X, so that can be taken differently. How do I get, again, total cost? Total cost can be given to me, but if they give me the variable cost and fixed cost, that gives me a linear line. That is my total cost function. Now, how to get the equation of a tangent line. We've done this on 3 tests. It is absolutely going to be there. Okay? Make sure you're comfortable with doing that. Know how to find the average cost function. We've talked about it on at least 3 tests. Okay? Make sure you know how to get that. When you see the word marginal, marginal tells you to take the derivative. So understand it. Make sure you understand if you're asked to interpret a marginal piece, it's for the next value. It's an approximation. Okay? So make sure you use those words correctly. There will be one problem where you're going to have to do everything, like, again, sketching it out, but it will be, again, a more straightforward one. You will have definitely marginal, which is your slope of your tangent line, which is your derivative, average cost. Okay? Make sure you understand word problems, because there's going to be more of those on here, because that's showing me that you understand the concept of the business end, as well as showing me the work and proving why it works. If you're not sure, please ask. Okay? The worst thing I can tell you is I can't answer that, but sometimes I can clarify it. Make sure you come in and you know profit equals revenue minus cost. Make sure that you know the revenue function is P times X. If they don't give it to me, you may have to form that out. Be careful with your signs. Okay? Double check your work. Slow down. Make sure you are verifying what you have. Okay? You're going to have time. Now, if you get to a problem and you're struggling it, as I always tell you in math, skip it and come back to it. So, don't let yourself build up that piece. Anything you find for yourself when you're going over your test reviews that you need to have a formula, go ahead and start writing those out so that you have an idea of what you need to data dump when you start the test. Okay? Some of y'all are going to want to data dump the integral rules. Some of y'all are going to want to data dump some of the formulas for variable cost or total cost and average cost. What do I do with absolute extrema? Taking 5 minutes to write some rules down for yourself probably will benefit you in the long run. So if you need to do that, please do that. Okay? You'll have 2 hours to take this test. So we'll be taking it. I'll be there. Please ask if you're not sure. Make sure you've practiced with your calculator enough to where you're comfortable how to do my fractions, how to check those min and maxes and find those zeros using my calculator. But if it's factorable, I still want to see it factored. Okay. Study. Don't wait till the last night. Break it up. Do a little bit each day so that you've got that confidence when you're doing it. Okay. Most of y'all can do this stuff. It's just building the confidence of knowing what do I do where. So just skimming over it the night before isn't going to be enough. It's going to all mix together. Come in, understand what you're going to do. Maybe come in with a plan. I've kind of given you an idea of what the questions are going to be. So maybe if you want to decide to do one specific problem idea first, then go to it. Okay. Make sure you label your work. Make sure it's legible for me. Some of y'all have been writing where I can't read it. So please make sure you do that so that I can give you credit for something that you have done. Good luck studying. Good luck on the tests.